The writing process has traditionally been a very linear one. When I first started teaching, I had the poster on my wall that has the little kid in the middle with the idea bubbles that say the writing process. You begin with your drafting, then you pre-write, or you pre-write, then you draft, then you edit, and then you revise, and then you publish. And we know that that's the very linear process of the writing process. I didn't realize that the writing process is not like that at all until I started writing. Because it's not. It's a recursive process. We continually go back and revise and revisit and change things along the way and look at our targets again. So I've thought differently about the writing process, going from this very linear process to something that is evolving and changing constantly. If we're going to begin with the end in mind, what does the end look like? So when I'm starting teaching my students a new genre of writing or something new, we begin with a mentor text. And there's different ways that you can start with a mentor text. Kids need to know what does that look like in its entirety. First one is exemplars. I use student exemplars all the time. Give my kids levels of high-level samples of work and low-level samples of work, and I challenge them. What do the high-level pieces have that the low-level pieces don't? These are our targets. What do they include that the other ones don't? How do you define them? Where's your work? What would you need to do to make your work look more like this? Student exemplars are fantastic resources. Second way you can take a look at a mentor text is through teacher modeling. And I know that a lot of primary teachers, how many primary teachers? Wow, a lot of us. Junior teachers? Any intermediate high school teachers? Wow, God bless you. Teacher modeling, I know that as primary teachers we have those multicolored markers that make us so happy. We're the only people who get so excited in Staples. Oh my gosh, when they came out with metallic Sharpies, my world changed forever. So multicolored markers. I know when we model, we start with the chart paper, and it's beautiful. We use the multicolored markers, and we underline with perfect wavy lines. That's not what writing looks like. When our little kids are struggling to find word choice, when they're struggling with spelling, writing is difficult. It's messy. Sometimes when I write with my kids, they need to know that it's messy, that I'm struggling to find the right word, that, oh, I wish I'd put this idea over here, and I'm going to put it in now because I thought of it, and that's a great idea. And I can't use this word again because I've already used it twice. Quick, somebody grab me a thesaurus. Let's think about how we're going to change this word. So teacher modeling is very, very purposeful, not only in the way that it gives kids an idea of what that form of writing looks like, but it really gives them a clear illustration of what the writing process is. How is it authentic? Looks very different than multicolored markers with perfect wavy lines. When we're writing, it's very different. And the final mentor text that we can use is published text. There are so many different resources available for us as far as published text. If you're teaching your students about writing a narrative, read narratives. If you're teaching your kids about writing newspaper reports, grab the newspaper, take a look at them, get online, look at the resources that are available. So start with things that have actually been published. Have your kids take a look at them. This is what we're going to be writing. What does it have in it? From that, we're going to create what's called success criteria. So these are basically the things that you need to put in your writing that make it work. If we go back to our picture of a house, success criteria can be broken down into 4 areas, and these are from the Ontario Learning Our Expectations, the language document. So the achievement chart. We have knowledge, thinking, communication, and application. And if we were to look at our house, the knowledge of that house, if I had said to you, okay, we're going to draw a house, it needs to have walls and a roof, then you probably would have met with greater success. You would understand the form. So if we're going to be writing a narrative with our students, they need to know the parts that have to go into it. What is the form of that form of writing? What does it have? It has characters, setting, and a plot. The plot has to have a conflict or a problem and a resolution. They need to know those parts. Second part is thinking. So you can have a complete story, but if it's about burnt toast, I don't want to read it. It's boring. So thinking, again, if we're looking at our house, thinking, how did you put those elements together in a way that's creative and unique? So when you're writing a story or you're writing any piece of writing, how are you going to combine your ideas in a way that is engaging and exciting? The third area is communication. And a lot of times we get stuck on communication. Communication is just, it's a small area. So we need to think about communication, but we need to balance it with all the other ideas as well. Communication, so thinking about what specific skills your kids are working on. Are they working on punctuation or grammar, voice, sentence fluency in their writing? And the final part is application. So how am I going to tell you about myself as a writer? Through my piece of writing. On my house picture, it has my address. So that's the way I connected to that piece of work. Success criteria is going to guide your kids through the writing process. So now they've looked at what the target looks like, they've taken it apart so they understand the pieces, and now they need to try it out. Trying it out is so different from the way I originally thought when I first started teaching. It is not an on your own, in a quiet corner writing process. Sometimes for some kids, they need to be working with a partner. They think better that way. For some kids, it is on your own in a quiet corner. These are my guys this year. I love this picture. This is just 21st century learning in action. They have laptops, they're sitting against a wall, and they're all working on their own writing. But they're like little pack animals. They just want to be close to each other. And that's okay. So this is one of those things I think about. So I have a student who I need to scribe for. He has a story in him. He just can't express it. So I scribe for him. He's an author. He needs to have his voice heard. So we've taken a look at what it looks like. We've set the success criteria or the targets. We've had a chance to try it out. This is where our part comes in as a conferencing, coaching, and feedback. When I first started writing with Pembroke, I was introduced to an incredible, incredible person whose name is Kat, and she is my editor. And as I worked my way through what is the authentic writing process, I discovered what editors actually do. As a teacher, I thought an editor fixed things. Author wrote, editor fixed, publisher published, right? My editor is so much more than that. She is a writing coach. When I write, she asks me questions all along the way. I'll write and I'll think, oh, it's brilliant, she's going to love it. And I'll send it to her and she'll send it back with feedback. Tons of questions. Can you expand on this? Can you explain this? I didn't understand this part. This part isn't clear. This part has no purpose. All of these questions that drive my writing. It's forcing me to become a better writer, to rethink my writing. Not once does she change a single part of my writing. It's all my changes, all through the writing process. She drives my writing through questioning, probing, prompting, frustrating, until I've reached a point where it's the best that I can possibly do. And that's when she takes it and finishes the final editing. So as teachers, we don't need to be editors where you sit with a child and write all over their work and fix it. What are they learning from that? Nothing. We need to be the coach. We're going to sit with them and question and prompt and probe and guide their writing along the writing process. I love this quote. It's by Michelangelo. He said that every block of stone has a statue inside it, and it's the task of the sculptor to discover it. And every single time I sit down with one of my little guys to have a writing conference and think about what I'm going to work with them on, I think of them as a piece of art. They are an author. And I'm not shaping the piece of writing in front of me. I'm shaping the author inside of them. And by giving them one thing to work on, what focus am I changing am I guiding in their process of becoming a better author? I'm not going to polish a piece of unshapen stone. So perhaps we need to think about ideas for one of our students. And that's going to be the focus for one of them. And that's what they're going to need to work on. So as I reflect on each piece of writing with each child, it's a progression of their development as an author. It's not each piece of writing in isolation. I'm looking at setting a goal. What was your goal from last time? How are we doing with that? Let's set a new goal and work towards that. And we're continuing to shape and refine our authors. I had a little guy a few years ago, and we were learning to write newspaper articles. So we had gone through the entire process of looking at newspaper articles, and we had actually done a conference, a journal conference, where all the students role-played reporters, and we had they were asked, people role-playing, and they asked questions, and they collected all their information, and then they were about to write their newspaper articles. And one little guy he was kind of cowering in the corner because we were at the stage where we were doing feedback and we were talking about it and we needed to have them published and we were going to share them with everyone, and he wasn't ready to share. And his friends started ratting him out. He doesn't have anything done, he's not done, he's supposed to be finished, and he hasn't even started yet. So I called him over, come show me what you've done. It's not that he hadn't started, he just hadn't put it all together yet. He'd done a lot. He had all his ideas, he had all these jot notes, he had all this stuff, he just didn't know how to organize it. He had one thing to do. I set a goal for him. You need to take all of your ideas and put them into sentences. That's it. Go work on that. All of a sudden, it was a manageable task. It was something he could do. That was his next step. That was his goal. So when I give feedback to kids, I always think about telling them 2 things that they did well and 1 thing that's a goal for them to continue working on. And we always base it on our success criteria that we determined at the beginning. No surprises. You know, we're not going to say, oh, you need to use a metaphor. But we didn't talk about metaphors. Okay? If it's not on your success criteria, we're not revisiting it.